Welcome to Three Mums Podcast, hosted by Natalie, Anthea, and Charlene. This is a space where you'll get nothing but real conversation. This is your moment to pause, have a laugh, get involved, and come on our journey. Open, honest, and free always. Hashtag the Three Mums Way.
What I really want to talk about today is normalising apologising to your children. So Shaz and I come from the same household. So I'll ask you first, Am. Did your parents ever apologise to you if they were in the wrong? Told you off for the wrong reason, or you did something or they thought you did something and it turned out it wasn't you? Did they ever come back in your childhood and say, Anthea, I am sorry. I'm sorry for shouting at you, or I'm sorry for accusing you. I'm sorry. Were those words that you heard in your childhood?
I have no recollection.
No recollection.
No recollection. I think it was just unheard of anyway. For your parents to say...
And we're of Jamaican... Caribbean descent.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? That is our culture, so we know that this is just not a Caribbean thing. I know that.
What's the saying? Children should be
seen and not heard. We were very much raised
I can't
under that. We should be. So what's your opinion on it? How do you feel? Do you think that you should apologise to your child if you are wrong? Do you think... What's your opinion? Actually, before I ask you that, Shaz, do you remember being apologised to?
Once.
Okay. And I think I know what son it was.
Yeah.
And which parent was that?
It was Daddy.
Okay. Go on.
And it was... Daddy had said something to me and I literally burst into tears. And I can remember my mum was like, Dennis, don't... And you know what? What he said was true.
It's how...
Do you know what? I'm going to just say it.
Yeah.
I had... When I was about 13, I put on a bit of weight. I was really enjoying crisps and meat.
Meat.
Crisps and meat. This is so random. And do you know what? I was getting a little bit chubby. And I don't think my dad at the time knew how to deal with that. Also, I was actually fine. I was actually not... There actually wasn't a massive issue. And I just want to... Anyone who's listening who has a child that has a bit like... It's actually okay. But... My dad just was like...
Or he maybe could see if you continue.
There we go.
It
could get unhealthy.
It could spiral.
Because,
maybe it was that.
It is about health. And so, I think he was trying to avoid that. And so I remember him saying what he said. And I would just cried my eyes out. And do you know what? He apologised.
Yeah. Because
he apologised. So because you know what? It's not always what you say. It's how you say it. There we go.
So I can recall, out of the two of them, Mummy was more inclined to apologise. I definitely can recall maybe one or two, maybe even 3 times. Mummy might have shouted at me for something or that. And I'm like, why are you talking to me like that? Do you know what I mean? And later on, took her a minute, but my mum would come back hours later and she would say, no, I'm sorry for what I said or how I said earlier.
Mummy apologising to me.
Yeah, mummy definitely. But I was the child that definitely challenged you.
Yes.
But in the way I challenged you, because of that whole seen and not heard, it would be, you're disrespectful. When actually I'm not being disrespectful. You asked me a question and I don't understand the reason or why. So I'm like, so because I'm challenging and a lot of times my mum might not have been articulating herself correctly. Do you understand? So I'm like, you're not making any sense. I'm not understanding. This is more definitely not child. I say this is like teens, so early teens, not late teens, but between the ages.
But you're still her child. You're
11 to 15. Do you get what I mean? And being told you're being rude, and I'm like, I just simply asked you a question. I don't understand. Do you know what I mean? And she'd go away, and I can recall at least 2 or 3 occasions her apologising in my whole of my childhood and teenagers, especially, and into early 20s. I can only recall my dad apologising to me once. I will not disclose the situation or what it was, but one time. And if I'm honest with you, as we've mentioned before, love that man to bits. And we have an amazing relationship now. But one of the things that I always struggled with that apologising, with that moment he apologized, that apology, thank you, with that apology, he did it over the phone. He left to go to work. And obviously he realised that situation was really bad and he called me back and I accepted it. But as I got older, I always struggled with the fact that he raised us to be some children to look people in the eye. To if you do wrong, you go and you correct it and you make it right. You own it and and it's how I'm raising my children to be. And he never apologized to my face. He called me and he said sorry, but for years I just struggled. It bothered me. It bothered me that you still didn't humble yourself enough, actually, even if you did it on the phone, to come back and let me see your eyes face to face. Let me see the sincerity face to face. And I think that we should be apologising to our children in terms of, I'm guilty of it. I think we all can relate to lashing out or responding to our kids. You might not be there yet, Shah, because 10 years only. No. You know what I mean? But you might be able to relate to feeling a bit of frustration. Do you get what I mean? Like, like she's taking long to go to bed. Like, you might not use it verbally, but you might even respond to her in a certain way right now with the way you might lie her down on you. It's subtle things, Charlie, that children can pick up on. I remember, we've been at this now for nearly an hour. Go to sleep. Like, do you understand? And it's more because my cup was full. You know what I mean? Lie down. Like, my cup was full. Do you understand what I mean? I can actually think of one moment where she just kept crying. And I know it's because she was overtired. And actually, at the time, I was writing an idea down for a song. So your brain was elsewhere.
And she was just and she could tell she didn't have my full attention. It's the more, when you're trying to change your child, they're putting their legs and actually recorded it. And when I played it back, I noticed where I caught myself. I was like, Baba, it's not my fault you didn't sleep. But before, I was like, today I stop and now. She could tell, but she could feel it, and I was not as calm
in a certain way. And that, truthfully, was not so much because she hadn't said, because your mind was elsewhere. You had other things you wanted to do. Your brain was elsewhere. Do you get what I mean? So, what about you, Amph? Can you relate to that? You've got 3 children, 3 different characters. No, 3 different characters, 3 personalities. Do you find yourself in situations where you respond to them out of your cup being full or right? And then do you go back and apologise? Is that something you found easy at the start, or did you always? You know what I'm saying?
I've learned to. I think
to actually see yourself.
Yeah. I've learned to
catch yourself, boy.
With the first, it was I've never been on this journey before, so I didn't understand certain behaviours. He didn't understand certain of my behaviours. So there was a constant clash. And I was doing it as a single parent. Yes, I have an amazing and had an amazing support network around me at the time. But there's still those moments where it's just mother and child. And I'm not understanding why this child isn't doing what I'm needing him to do. And many times of frustration. And I know... I'm a person of transparency anyway, and it's something you will learn over these pods is that, I've said things, never done anything, but I know I've shouted in anger, and then I've had those moments when I've had to turn to someone, and that's usually Nats, and said the level of mom guilt. And just say, this is what I've done, or this is what I've said, and I'm feeling terrible for it. And I think that was in my early years of motherhood. As, the time's gone on, I still have those moments. And like you said, Nats, it's when, not a lot of the time, my emotional cup is full. And I just don't have the capacity to meet their needs individually.
Oh, there's times when they're just down on not behaving themselves. They're misbehaving.
And I think sometimes as well, what I find the hardest is when I'm I want them to understand me. And I'm just it's like they do see, I know, but it's I'm one person. And that's what I find myself.
We talked about that the other day.
One person.
I've seen that with you. And the other day with you, Joel asked you for something, and it's Joel, I'm doing the request you just asked. But she's already asking me for something else.
Yeah, and I have, definitely come to an understanding that it is imperative to apologise when I know it's not about them,
or when
and it's been about me.
Okay, even I'll go a step further though. There are times when we lash out to them and they were in the wrong. They did do something wrong, but still the way you dealt with it was incorrect.
Yeah, 100%.
So it's not always the case that they've
But it still goes back to how your emotional cup might be.
Still your emotion.
That's the thing.
I do think yes.
I think you're more balanced. I know I'm more balanced because if any of them have done something wrong, and yes, they need correction, I know that if even in that moment when I'm correcting, I probably go above and beyond what I needed to because, again, my emotional cup, yes, 100%, they needed correcting. Yeah. But it's fueled by where my emotions are.
I think for me, what about you, Shock? Can you relate? I mean, I was going to say for me, in the what I can relate to is just that childhood thing of just being made to feel like the worst kid in the world.
Oh, sorry, I thought you were talking about me. I was going to say as a parent.
No, but feeling like the worst kid, like you just know that it just doesn't line up. Like I know I went and touched this thing, but that response you just gave me, what it taught me, I'm being honest with you, and I can relate to get into like early teens. I kind of just was like, whatever, innit? Because I was a very responsible child. I was very mature. So it's like, that was such an overreaction to this particular thing. Do you get what I mean? And I just think it was learned behaviour for our parents. You know, I can only relate to, like, let's say my grandmother. My grandmother was a certain way with my dad. My dad was that same. And he ruled with an iron fist. Do you understand what I mean? And I'm definitely of the mindset that I want my children to be able to talk to me. And if I'm going to snap at you for the most trivial thing or respond to you out of my frustration or where I'm at and not hear you, not see you, or actually disregard you, as I felt, I mean, I'm being honest, in my household, we were, in my opinion, second class. So there was a hierarchy, and it was very clear that there's a hierarchy, adults and children. Do you understand what I mean? And I do believe that our generation, there is a slight blur of the lines, and it is hard navigating that. Like sometimes the way Joelle will respond to me or the questions she will ask, I'm like, but then on the flip side, I'm like, it's shown that I've still cultivated a relationship or a foundation for openness. Do you understand what I mean? And I do believe that there's a way for, it's just my job to navigate that and to train that, or to nurture it in a certain way. Do you get what I mean? But I think that children are worthy and they're valuable and they deserve an apology if you've done something wrong. 100%, whether they're from the youngest, 1 year old, mummy is sorry, mummy did not mean that, mummy, do you understand what I mean? Mummy's going through this right. They might even fully understand it, but they'll grasp that there's something going on here. And, do you understand what I mean?
I think what it does is it makes you more human. Because I think I remember having my parents. On a pedestal. Definitely. Definitely my dad. Like, it was like, he can't do any wrong. And I actually remember the moment when it kind of flipped from just dad to dad/friend. Because I remember him kind of sharing something with me and I was just like, oh, wow. Oh, Daddy, you did that. Like, you're actually just human. Yeah. And it was a humbling experience, but humbling is not the word. It was like an eye-opening experience, but it also made us closer. Yeah. And I remember you actually, I think maybe you said it in another podcast night where you said you were crying in front of Joelle. Yeah. And you were trying to hide it, but actually
But that's learned behaviour.
Yeah, I know.
That's learned. And I think that the whole thing about apologising, why our parents' generation didn't do it, they see apologising as a weakness, admitting to a mistake. We're parents, that doesn't mean that we know what we're doing, we're getting it right all the time. And I feel like that generation saw coming back and saying sorry to you as admitting, well, I've made a mistake as a parent. Well, hell yeah, of course I've made loads. And I think that's the difference in our generation, that we need our children to know we're not some perfect. Yeah. Like we need them to grasp this very, very soon, because the world is a real place. And if we can train them with those little things in here, mistakes are normal, they're healthy, falling on your face, get back up, like, you know what I mean? And I'm going to do this as a parent, you're going to do this as a child. So, yeah.
I think our older generations as well, and before then, haven't really faced up to a lot of their trauma. No. They're, I think like our generation, we're trying to live really healthy lives, and clear just like getting rid of the junk or just a lot of unlearning. We really want to navigate that well, and I think that also is a part of it. It's like, actually, I'm not perfect, and actually that I did that because of that.
What is perfect?
Finding the root.
Where did that come? What does that look like?
Perfect is too much hard work.
Waiting. What does perfection as a parent even look like? I can't even imagine navigating being a mother with that perception over me, never apologising, never owning up to something wrong. Like that's uncomfortable.
It's learned.
That's uncomfortable to carry.
Behaviour.
Do you know what I mean? I'm quick to apologise. I've actually always been the first to apologise. If I've done something wrong, I can humble myself, and it's something I'm raising. For me, that is such an integral thing to have about you. Do you know what I mean? You do wrong, just own it. And sometimes, and I'm with my daughter,
about that life.
Joelle, there's times when she'll do stuff and and I'm like, Bubs, that was naughty. And she is so quick to apologise, and I'll accept her apology, but she'll come back, she'll be like, you're not accepting my apology, and I'm like, I'm accepting it, but I still need a minute, Bubs. Like, I'm still human. I did not like what you did, and you need to learn to accept that just because you've apologised doesn't mean that person's even going to accept it or is ready to receive it right now, and that is life. And a lot of the time, I think people don't apologise because they don't want to feel the backlash or the weight of the mistake that they've made, because face up to it. Sometimes your apology doesn't make things right. It's just the way that it goes. So it's easier just to act like it doesn't exist.
I remember actually doing something naughty, and I remember I was in the doghouse for like however many hours after. I see you've articulated that, but I do think that there's a line, because I've watched you now when you have told off Joelle or whatever, even Josiah when they were younger. And I remember you giving a cuddle, and I know with Joelle, she needs that physical contact. I remember doing something naughty, and even sometimes all till the next day.
But I need to let you know that I'm still angry.
And I'm not. But then when you say that, you're being honest and saying, Mummy needs a moment, because even in marriage, like there'll be something and Chris will come and I'm like, babe, I just need some time. Like, I accept your apology, but it's not all like he'll want to hug, and sometimes I don't feel like doing that at that moment. And because we are emotional beings as well as women, like I just need a second to just process my feelings.
Can't just switch off.
So
I just think so are we in agreement? Normalise apologising to your kids.
I 100% agree. The thing that I would go back and say though is that certain things that happened in my childhood with my parents, and even like my brothers would back me up on this, where we were reprimanded for the right reasons and sometimes for the wrong reasons. And then when, as adults now, we make light of the situation. And for me, it's funny to see the response of my parents.
Handle it.
They cannot handle it. It's like they would deny, like that was never me. And I'm like, I'm giving you an account.
I'm telling you
what you did, how you reacted, but
they don't like to talk about it.
They feel uncomfortable.
I think it really does make them uncomfortable.
It does.
Why is that?
Because
we're talking, they're all in their 60s. All of our parents are in their 60s. Why is that even now...
They can see that wasn't okay.
Wrong.
Guys, I'm going to be blunt, because if they're honest, they would know it's verging on the border of abuse. No, I'm just being real. It would be verging on abuse, on the border of abuse.
And we turned out good considering. Because
you know what? There could have been a lot of... I'm not saying my parents, not so much with my parents, but for people out there that would have actually had similar experiences, that certain things have traumatized them throughout their life, and it hasn't shifted. It hasn't shifted. And yes, we may say, it's passed on through the generations and whatnot, but, I'm glad to say that I'm not of that mindset. Like the certain things that I experienced with my parents, categorically, I had said, if I was ever a parent, and I'm not saying it was bad, I just thought I just wouldn't want to be like that with my children. I love my parents emphatically. We have an amazing relationship, but I just know that there's just certain things I wouldn't want my children to have to experience. And so apologising is definitely not an issue. Apologising to other people. But apologising to my kids, I think based on what you've just said,
I think what I've held most, I guess you have to be honest, there is still an element of trauma, because actually you have to have been traumatized a bit by it to make a very, very conscious decision to not repeat it. Like, let's be real. Do you understand what I mean? So I think it's not so much the act. For me, it's how it made me feel. I have held on to and done my best to hold on to different scenarios and how they made me feel and what that thought process did for me. Because sometimes the thought process goes with you. Because let's be honest, a smack or whatever didn't sting for that long. It's the words or what was done in that moment that stung the longest. Do you understand what I mean?
I'll tell you what stung for me, when my mum hit me with her skull slipper.
Oh, Jesus. Okay, well, that did sting. But,
do you know the skulls?
Yes.
Do you know, I don't know if you're... Yeah, skulls is like a clog, yeah. And it had a wooden base.
Yeah. And for what reason? We can't even remember what the reason was for.
I can't lie, we got some beatings, but we never got beaten with objects. The hand was hard enough, boy.
Do you know what I mean?
Will I be editing this?
No. What for? What for? I mean, mummy every now and then, but mummy always picked up the most. It was silly.
No belt.
Do you get what I mean? Mummy did pick up the belt, but mummy was smack us with the blanket on top of us.
The belt was like the belt we'd wear for pinafore.
Oh my God. And then we still have the blanket over us. So she never really was like that.
Mummy never wanted to do that.
She more than likely did it because I had pushed her to, do you know what I mean? I was a wind. And I could admit that. Do you get what I mean?
And she led me astray.
Like, I was a wind. And a lot of the time, if I can recall, it was more bedtime. Do you understand what I'm saying? It's not like I wouldn't go to bed. And it's just like, and I now look back and I think she just wanted her time, innit? She just wanted her time, her 2 minutes in her room, you know what I mean?
Honestly, when you look back,
all she just wanted was her time to herself, and eventually she would give in. Charlene would fall asleep, and there would be times when I'd just go and sit on the floor on her bedroom, just by the door, and she'd just give up. She'd just be ironing the clothes for the week, and she'd just leave
watching
me to
her
sit
show.
There. Yeah, she'd leave me to sit there because I wasn't doing anything. I just wasn't ready to go to sleep. But now when I look back, she must have just wanted to be in her room on her own.
And how are you telling her you're not ready to go to sleep?
I didn't tell her. I would just keep.
Yes, you are telling her free.
I would just keep. What I'd do is I'd come in and I'd like push the door open and then run back to my room. Or I was mischievous.
Annoying.
Do you know what I mean? Like proper mischievous. But would never do that with my dad. Do you understand what I mean? Like, I never ever do that with my dad, like at all.
And that's the thing with mine. He wasn't.
You still knew what parents to play up.
I just knew how far I could go with my dad, and my dad was never like, he wasn't a hitter. He just had this look, and the look said it all. The look said, "Don't even think about it," and that's it. That was enough for me. So
I think for me the main thing is just not ever wanting them to feel how I felt in a certain moment. And I can recall just knowing that the punishment didn't correlate to the act. And sometimes there wasn't even an act. I hadn't done anything wrong. Do you get what I mean? And it was like, yeah, that doesn't feel nice. And how I know that they were wrong? Because they are nothing like that with the grandchildren. Like the things that my kids can do and say and get away with. Like, do you get what I'm just like, wow, this is different.
And we make jokes about it.
And we make jokes and they brush it off. But it's actually hilarious. Like, do you get what I mean? Like, my dad even will make a point. Like, I don't have to hit my grandkids. Like, and I'm like, right, do you know what I mean? I can just talk to them. I can just, really? Like, but you could have just talked to us. Do you get what I mean? But it's a different time, it's a different place, it was a different
age.
And
when you know better,
you do better.
But I was going to say, Nats, but I feel being the oldest.
Oh yeah, I got it way worse.
Yeah,
I got it way worse than Charlene.
So it's something that you wouldn't be able to relate to. Neither with my brothers, but yeah.
I got it, Charlene knows, I got it way worse. And even, also, I wasn't a crier. So I got the syllable slaps. I got the syllable slaps. You know what I mean? Don't you ever do this again. Like, again, because it's 2 syllables, like 2 smacks. Yeah. Do you know what I mean? From the first don't. In fact, before even the smack, Charlene's crying.
Can I just talk for myself? Or?
Like, she's just crying. Whereas I would catch kids, I would hold it in. I'm not crying in front of you. I would hold the tears in. The moment you finish, I'm going. So it made it worse. Do you get what I mean? But I got it way worse. I got,
And the reason why I say that, because even now, like with my oldest, sometimes I'm not in eye shot of what's going on. The girls call his name and I'm straight away like bellowing his name. And it's just like, Mum, I didn't even, do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it's just like catching yourself because there's this expectation being the oldest.
You know better.
Yeah, but it's not fair.
So go, Shah, you wanted to speak for yourself?
No, you actually said it. But it is mad though, because even as being the youngest, you do look up to your older. Like I proper looked up to Nats and, you know, still do, even though the age gap doesn't seem that important anymore. But so I guess it is, as a parent, it's like you have to set a good example. But then actually, I guess for you two, was that some kind of pressure, or did you feel that in any way? Or
because actually I can flip it for you. Do you not recall, let's say when you weren't doing as well in school and whatever else, being compared to me?
I guess there's two sides to it.
You was compared to me, like, because I had paved the way. But then I remember things flipping. Like I got to like mid-teens to late teens. Certain things I wasn't interested in, especially like to do with church and whatever. It's like, why can't you be like Charlene? It's like, and that for me is one of the worst things you can do to your children. Do not compare your children. Do not compare them.
How about we normalise seeing our children as individuals,
individual characters,
different needs,
individual personalities, individual needs, everything. Like, and I make a conscious effort not to do that. I think it is easier that I have a girl and a boy because it's like they really are just two different species.
But now in our family, they've really tried that. You know, people have said things about your two. He's not like Josiah.
And it frustrates me. Even now, I get comments. Do you understand what I mean?
People.
Why are you comparing them? Do you get what I'm trying to say to you? And I have to always kind of rein it in. I'm very, very strict over what you speak over my children, what you 100%. Say around my children. If I'm not doing it, you certainly can't. Like, it's as simple as that. Like, but I just feel, guys, that this is a topic that if you are even a new parent, like, and it's something you struggle with, you need to fix up on. You need to be able to navigate that and work that. We are trying to grow whole and wholesome, healthy humans, and children deserve an apology if they've been wronged. Just because they're young doesn't mean that they're unimportant, doesn't mean their emotions aren't valid. It doesn't mean, sometimes kids overreact. Let's be honest, even kids overreact, and then you might respond to them a certain way because they overreacted, but the reality is they're still children. They're still...
I hear you now. I'm actually thinking about a friend of mine, and she was... It's so funny when you peel it all back and you look at the situation, because she was like... She remembers her mum just slapping them and just being frustrated. But she's like, Shah, my mum came over here from Nigeria. She had broken up with her partner. She had 4 kids and there was not loads of money. She was like, my mum was stressed, fam. And when she would come home, if we hadn't done what she'd asked, she would go nuts. And she's like, I'm trying to break it down. My mum's asked us to cook. The woman's hungry. And if you've not cooked, then now I have to come home. And again, it's layered because it's that responsibility that she's... But I guess it's like, it is seeing them as humans, but it's like when I hear stories like that, when you're having a rough time or when you're, you know, you can, and it doesn't excuse it now, but it's just...
It doesn't.
And even, can I just say, also, when I look at Daddy, how, because when he was younger... Grandma didn't believe him when teachers would lie on him.
Layers,
and so when I think of the way Daddy defended
he grew up in an era that teacher's word was gospel.
Yeah,
do you know what I mean?
My point is he changed that for us. He did. Anyone tried to say anything about us, and Daddy was the first one. When I say I felt covered and defended by my dad, not just at school, people saying things to me, even at church. I remember there was a lady that prayed for me before my exams. And she was like, you know, I can see that you're fearful. And
Charlene wasn't.
I was not fearful. And then after she said that, I was fearful. And I remember my dad was like, don't ever say anything like that to my...
I said, don't pray for my child.
My point is, he changed things for him.
Certain things.
But certain things, absolutely. But I just, it's just like, when you know better, you do better. And I guess at the time, he didn't know, he didn't know better, but now he does. And so now he doesn't do that with our children, sis. Cool. And it's about paving that thing forward and not doing the same, not making the same mistake.
Thank you so much for listening to today's episode. Make sure you follow us on all of our social media pages, Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter at 3mums, except for Instagram, which is 3_mums. And make sure you subscribe to us on YouTube.
I have so many questions.